probably don't understand why Sean did this. In fact, there are only 3 people on earth who do. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show. It would take me so long to explain why he put Polish music on. I will, though. My guests have their revered, beloved... What is her title for you? Angel?
She's our everything.
CEO,
COO, CFO.
Babysitter.
LTD, ZRJ.
And the responsible adult.
And yes, Magda, who is from Poland. My Irish friends are in town here. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager. I have 2 passions. Oh, thank you. Hello to you.
Good morning.
That was very nice. I was very touched by that. That was very human, Phelim. I have never seen you without a hat.
Yeah.
Is there a reason you're not wearing a hat today?
I was doing a very nasty interview before I left the house with a nasty journalist, and I got flustered and left without my hat.
Is that why?
That is the exact reason.
I like your hair, though. Why do you always wear a hat? I'm not against hats. I was just because it's part of your persona now.
No, well, it's partly for continuity purposes, partly so the cameraman. Sometimes I'm caught up in scrums, so the cameraman can see me and find me. And
I see. All right, that makes sense. I am speaking to Phelim and Anne, Phelim McAleer and Anne McElhaney. I do that every time I say your last name. I end up with an Irish brogue. It's hilarious. And let me say this, because my listeners know I'm very real. I have 2 passions right now, 2 passionate fights. Yours, on behalf of you, and to have people uninstall Firefox. And because if we don't fight, we who hold the values of what made America the greatest country in the world, I mean, it's true. It's painful that one has to even argue that. If we don't fight... Here's the story, folks. There's a civil war in the United States, and one side is fighting. That's how I often describe it. And oddly enough, you don't win if you don't fight. Okay, let me make that clear. So I got fighters in the room. That's why I love this couple. I really do. I adore you guys.
Thank you.
well, thank you.
I adore Anna a drop more than Phelim, but nevertheless, having said that.
That's the majority opinion.
No, I understand. It's even. It is even. But this couple, these are... terrific journalists. They have a magnificent achievement background in journalism. They made a terrific documentary on fracking. And let me tell you something. If you can make fracking both compelling and funny, you're good. All right? Let me just say, it's called Frack Nation.
Thank you.
And it should be. See, I saw every minute of it. And you know my story. I was supposed to watch it for 10 minutes. And I ended up watching the entire thing. In fact, my wife came over, and you know my wife, Sue, and she came over next to my seat at my desk in the office and sat on a stool for 40 minutes. She couldn't get up. Wow. That's how riveting your thing is. So they're going to do something. They're making a movie. This time this is a full-length feature film. This is not a documentary. This is Hollywood, folks, except not produced from folks in Hollywood. And it is about Kermit Gosnell, and the fact that I have to tell you who he is, except unless you live in Philadelphia. We have a big listenership in Philadelphia. But is itself part of what your film is going to be about. Why is he not better known? The man murdered, and I don't always use that term, but he murdered thousands of born children. Whatever your position on abortion, we've got to be united on infanticide. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I almost prefer he be called an infanticide doctor, because that's what he did. And you are making this film. Phelim, you actually went to the trial. Mm-hmm. And what struck you most about the trial?
First thing, the empty journalist seats. That was the first, how quiet the courtroom was. I expected, at these trials, I've been to trials, murder trials in Ireland, terrorist trials. they're long trials, and there's a sort of sense of camaraderie among the journalists. You all go to lunch together. You even meet up with the prosecutor, the defence. It's a real, it's a real trip, And I went there. It was empty. It was like the Marie Celeste. There's more people in this office, actually, looking around.
The studio.
In the studio than there was some days in that courtroom. And that is not an exaggeration.
And actually, we have the photograph for those people who are listening to try and imagine what that's like. If they go to gosnellmovie.com right now, they'll see the photograph, and it's chilling, and it should actually
Empty
upset people
benches.
enough to give us at least $1 and to show up for this film and to show up for the truth, because it's an extraordinary thing that
so
the media ignored it.
Here's the issue of what I said. One side is fighting the civil war, but only one side is fighting. Of course, there are some of you and I obviously fight, but not enough. But here's an example. Here's a great example, because this film can go viral. I mean, people will go to it. I know you are capable. Otherwise, I wouldn't do this. It's not enough for you to have a good heart. That's number one. And you are, both of you are, I told you privately, you're big, giant hearts, the two of you. But it's not enough. You need ability. And you have both of them. So I trust you, and I've sent you my money. Here's a simple thing, folks. This is financed by the public. By the way, the New York Post, I saw your article in the New York Post, Phelan, where Kickstarters, which claims to do exactly that, help people raise funds for films and so on, they wouldn't accept yours because of the subject. I think you should tell people what happened.
Look, we raised the money through Kickstarter for our last film, Frack Nation, got $212,000, went back to Kickstarter, and they said, no, you can't put it there if you describe what he did, that he stabbed thousands of babies to death, that would offend their community guidelines, violate their community guidelines. We said it's factual. They said, no, you have to remove it or modify that language. We don't allow it. And we just, in the end, we said, we're not willing to be part of a community whose community guidelines are, you can't tell the truth. This story has been censored by the media from the word go. It's not been covered. We're not starting to make a film about it by immediately starting to censor our language. It's just, that's not what we're there for.
So you and I already have, and probably will again, but can help make this film possible. So you've gone from Kickstarters to another venue in order to make this possible. Just go to gosnellmovie.com. If you want to give $1, give $1. If you, the average donation has been more than $1, of course.
It's been $72.
Well, which is very significant.
Yeah.
And you've raised now how much?
Last time I looked,
533.
530.
Well, that's great. And how many days left? They have to raise $2.1 million. And if they don't, incidentally, you get your money back.
Yeah.
They're serious about that figure. Yeah, I just want you to know. If they raise $2 million, we get our money back. I don't want my money back.
We don't want you to get your money back.
Okay, very good. Excellent.
Yeah, and we even brought Magda today so that you give us more money than you originally
Is
planned.
that right? Oh, how effective. That was cheating. That really was cheating. But that is, so are you on course now? How does it look?
Yeah. If we go at our current level, there'll be a spike at the end because people will come in at the last minute. We'll make it.
We're growing a community.
But you know what, folks? Don't come in at the last minute so that they sleep well at night.
Yeah.
I think we should raise the $2.1 million before the deadline. Gosnellmovie.com. Again, folks, we have to fight. Like the Firefox issue. You got to uninstall Firefox. That's free. I mean, that's effortless. I can't tell you. I get these. Forgive me, guys, for 1 minute. I get emails. Dennis, I would love to uninstall Firefox, but I just don't know computers. So I am so passionate about the Firefox issue because they fired. It's unbelievable. They fired their CEO because the man believes that marriage should be between a man and a woman. That's it. That's the only reason. It's staggering. It's staggering what's happening. So I am so passionate on it. I actually send back. I personally write how to uninstall.
Oh, can you send it to me? Because I tried to do it yesterday. I tried to do it yesterday and I couldn't. So I would like that email.
Fine. I will. Okay. I should make a back road so I could repeat it. Go to gosnellmovie.com and donate. And I'm serious. If you can only afford $1, give them $1. All right? If all my listeners gave them $1, they would be fine.
But also, if everyone gave $1, it's a massive vote to the studios, to the network, saying
that's right.
There's an audience out there. So
that's a very good point. So numbers of people
are really
is
important.
Also significant.
Yes.
You don't want $2 million from one person.
No.
All right, GosnellMovie.com. We continue with two terrific people. I'm Dennis Prager. Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. The reason for the Irish music now is that you guys are from Ireland, one from Northern and one from Ireland. They are, with your help and mine, they are going to make a film about Kermit Gosnell, who should be, unfortunately, a household name like Ted Bundy. I mean, everybody knows who Ted Bundy was. Why doesn't everybody know who this guy was? And those of you in Philadelphia, you should be really out there contributing to GosnellMovie.com because you know best. At least the Philadelphia press covered what he did. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, there's three local journalists there when I was in the courtroom.
So tell me, did people, even on the left of the spectrum, did they react in horror?
Yes. Yeah. When you were in that courtroom, there was no way. I spoke to a couple of the liberal journalists. Well, I think they're all liberal over there, but they all and it changed the minds of several of them.
Wow.
And they've gone on the record saying that. One guy who worked for the radical Philadelphia paper, Philadelphia Weekly, I think it's called. He has said, "I used to be comfortably pro-choice, and this has changed me." You cannot see that film, you cannot see that court case and see the pictures and hear the evidence and not have if you have a core belief in abortion, not have that shattered, and you have to go right back to where they don't want to go, and that I think is why the story was not covered in the media, was because they know it shatters people's belief in abortion. Because it is a belief. It's based on almost no evidence, right? Most people don't know what an abortion is. They don't know what goes on. I didn't know. I didn't know you could have an abortion at 6 months. I didn't know you could have an abortion at more than 6 months. I didn't know what an aborted baby at 6 months looked like until I saw the pictures in the courtroom. I didn't know what an aborted baby at 7 months looked like. And believe me, when you see those pictures and you hear that evidence and you hear about a baby being born at 6 months and a few weeks and it cried and it fought for life before he stabbed it to death by cutting its spinal cord, that makes you think again. Kermit Gosnell's own defence lawyer changed his mind about abortion. Two of the jurors who we've talked to, we don't know how the rest of them felt, they said it changed them from pro-choice to pro-life.
Right, but I want to make clear, because I trust you to be sophisticated, you are not, it's not a propaganda film.
No.
It's a crime movie. It's a crime movie. It's not, we're going to tell the truth, actually. About it.
Right, you don't have to editorialize.
No, you just tell the truth. I mean, the problem with this movie is there's so many great angles to it.
Exactly, including trying to understand him. I mean, is he a monster? I mean, I believe there are monsters, so you can say yes. I mean, you don't have to say yes, but I actually believe there are monsters.
Well, we have to investigate him further, right? From seeing him in the courtroom and listening to him, he is part Hannibal Lecter, but he's also part Jack Kevorkian, where he had this public support for what he did. So Jack Kevorkian is a kind of hero to many people. So he's part Hannibal Lecter, part Jack Kevorkian. But in his own mind, he believes he's George Clooney in ER, cutting a swathe through the...
But at the same time,
Really?
you can't get over the fact that he kept trophies, that when they did the raid, the initial raid, they found 45, I think, containers which held the remains of children, and then they found these jars in the same place where the peanut butter was, etc., where people were having their lunch, jars full of children's
that's
feet.
why I say monster.
Yeah, that's what a serial
Hannibal
killer
Lecter,
does.
Yeah. He writes poetry from prison. He wrote to the Bill Gates Foundation saying, "I want to work for you, covering justice issues." He's delusional. He's a delusional monster. But he was enabled by the authorities.
Was he married?
Yes.
Did he have children?
Yes.
It's mind-blowing.
He has a teenage daughter.
But he also has.
What does the teenage daughter think? Do you have any clue?
No.
He also has a daughter who is a senior doctor here in California.
Really?
Yes.
How interesting. You're right about the many angles. Yeah. One of them I know is going to be, but I want to emphasize the quiet courtroom, the lack of national attention, and why. Have you thought about what actors you'd like to recruit?
We've lots of ideas, but right now we're very focused on the.
No, I agree. I was just.
But a lot of people have been in touch with us.
Yes.
A lot of actors have been in touch with us.
Saying,
writers have been in touch.
Be
Directors, editors. A lot of people, which actually, by the way, is some kind of a vote of confidence. A lot of people obviously know that we're going to succeed because they're already looking for jobs. So we're
Yeah.
very, very comforted by that.
I would like a non-speaking role. I like a driver. If anybody's in a car and they need, I'll drive.
It'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, we're focusing now, I suppose, on raising the finances.
And we really hope that people who are listening,
All right,
will turn up and do that.
Let me make one final appeal right now, and that is gosnellmovie.com. And I'll tell you why it's so important, aside from the intrinsic importance of the topic. It will start a very important thing in America, and that is of those of us who have traditional values breaking into the movie business. Because it has been dominated by people with different values than us. They have every right to make movies. Mm-hmm. Nobody has ever denied that. But so do we.
Yeah.
And we, listen, how many millions of Americans voted for Mitt Romney? What was the number? Yes, 50-something million. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's equal to basically what the other side is. There's a lot of us.
Yeah.
And by the way, there are people, I want to make this clear, there are people who voted for the president who would cry just as readily knowing the Gosnell story as anybody else.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a conservative to cry about what this guy did. I want to make that clear. 57 million now, that's it. Anyway, it's gosnellmovie.com, and we need to raise $2.1 million by what date?
By the 12th of May, I think it is. Yeah.
All
by
right,
the 12th
so
of May.
it's coming along, and I know that my listeners respond, and I am very touched by that. So, guys, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll speak to you soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
gosnellmovie.com.
All the best.
Thank you very much. That was Phelim McAleer and his wife, Anne McElhaney, or if you wish, Anne McElhaney and her husband, Phelim McAleer. I'm very, very into egalitarianism. Okay, guys, be well. Magda, good luck. They didn't want to bring their assistant because they so love her that they were afraid we might hire her, which is true. We're going to make her an offer when they're not looking. That's exactly right. She was very impressive. Oh, my friends, listen, I have a new motto. Did you hear it? I said it to WNTP, our affiliate in Philadelphia. I really, the living martyr, you'll like this, right? We're in a civil war, but only one side is fighting. Now, of course, it's not entirely true. We have fighters, but there's no comparison. And we have to fight. Firefox is an example. Please read my column if you didn't. It's gone all over the internet. And that is, it's entitled Uninstall Firefox. We have to win on that battle. You can't fire your CEO because he thinks marriage should be between a man and a woman. And remember, as CEO, he gave full rights to gay couples. It's his thought that they objected to. Back in a moment. Hello, my friends, and welcome back, or welcome to the Dennis Prager Show. I am Dennis Prager, and I am delighted to have a man I have been reading for much of my life, William Tucker, who's been on this program with many of his books. His latest is on a rather significant subject, marriage and civilization, and its subtitle, it tells you what it is about, How Monogamy Made Us Human. That is the bonding of one man and one woman. William Tucker, welcome to the Dennis Prager Show.
Yeah, delighted to be here, Dennis. Terrific, thank you.
Well, that's very kind. So what is your thesis, that monogamy was the great advance in civilizing society?
Absolutely. I think it goes beyond that. There are two major theses in the book. First, that we never would have evolved as a species if we had not adopted monogamy. Now, this is something that anthropologists have really pretty much agree on, that it's because of the way humans are born and take so much time to become viable, they would never have been able to evolve unless you had two parents taking care of the offspring. This seems to have occurred about 5 million years ago, and there are actually some very easy ways to prove it. There are some very significant changes that you see in the first hominids, where it's become clear that they're not fighting over. There's not as much male competition over women as you have in polygamy, which was is the most common form of pairing in all mammals, and which we seem to have given up at that point. So, you have this long period of helplessness where a child is born, and it's most of this is because of the development of our brains, too. Our brains take so long to develop. We're all born about 2 months premature. On a scale of our body size, we should be in the womb for 11 months. We're born at 9 months. That because the head becomes too big to pass through the birth canal. So we're helpless. And a single mother, as occurs with most mammals, or just a mother nursing and trying to take care of a child, wouldn't have worked. You need the two-parent nurturing couple to prolong this period of helplessness. So that's number one. Number two is something I've arrived at a little more slowly, but the anthropologists love to tell us that 75% of all cultures ever discovered allow polygamy. They allow one male to take many wives. But the only cultures that have evolved into civilizations are monogamous, one exception being Islam. Now, I think that's tremendously significant because when you have a polygamous culture, you have a lot of internal problems. You have a lot of competition between men. You have a lot of fighting. And you have a lot of men left out of the marriage pool. That's the real problem. So I, slowly but surely in writing this book, I realized that the major civilizations are the ones that have imposed monogamy. Now, it's not a natural system. It's something that societies choose for themselves and they have to enforce. But when you look at China, when you look at India, when you look at the civilizations of the early civilizations of the Near East, and when you look at Western Christianity, you see that monogamy has played the crucial role in allowing larger and larger units to cooperate.
What was the story in Africa and in the Western Hemisphere prior to the coming of Europeans? American Indians, South American
Africa,
Indians.
Unfortunately, a lot of people overlook this, but Africa is the world capital of polygamy right now, particularly West Africa, and it's probably always been that way. Polygamy is allowed. It's celebrated in a lot of ways. It's defended by academics, and you have a situation where men are taking up to very wealthy men take 40, 50 wives. If you notice. In West Africa as well, there's always some rebel army out there in the bush that is trying to overthrow the existing system. And one of the things they do almost immediately is they start kidnapping women.
Yeah, hold on there. This is original thinking. Marriage and Civilization, William Tucker. I'm Dennis Prager. We continue. Every so often, I come across an idea that is so important that it helps me understand life much better. And my other reaction, because there's a certain ambivalence that I admit to, is why the hell didn't I think of it? Yeah, no, that's the truth. I'm thinking here, this is so obvious. Where was I?
Right.
Was I on third base? What's going on here?
Yeah.
I'm speaking to William Tucker, and his eminently readable and significant book is Marriage and Civilization: How Monogamy Made Us Human. This, I can't believe I did. As I said, I can't believe I didn't think of it. Your idea is so profound that.
Thank you.
Thank you. That monogamy is an engine of advanced civilization. Or let's put it this way, is indispensable. It doesn't guarantee your civilization will advance, but polygamy guarantees that it won't. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yeah, I think that's true, yeah. Most polygamous cultures are just involved in constant warfare. And the reason is simple. There aren't enough women to go around. When you allow very high-status men to marry multiple women, somebody at the bottom gets left off. And those people at the bottom are a very dissatisfied residue, and they're constantly pushing up against the system. You know, they're constantly in rebellion against the system. Now, in Africa, they go off in the bushes and they form a rebel army.
So you're right. So Africa, Islam, and I asked you about the American and South American Indian. Were they polygamous?
Well, the South American Indians were, yes. The fierce people, Napoleon Channion's discovery down in the Amazon basin. But the important thing is this. Human beings spent 5 million years as hunter-gatherers. And everybody thought, you know, when the Europeans went out in the 17th, 18th century, discovered these primitive tribes, they were all practicing polygamy. So everybody said, well, there's an evolution. You know, this became Darwinian. We started as polygamy, we evolved to higher monogamy. Then they discovered, to their amazement, when they found a few hunter-gatherers, there were still less in the world, there aren't too many, they were religiously polygamous. They were fierce monogamous. They were fierce monogamists, as one explorer put it. And you realize that for 5 million years we were monogamous. There's a very good reason. Because a hunter-gatherer tribe has to have everybody on board. You're a small little unit there. All you've got is your brains. You're hunting down woolly mammoths 10 times your size. You have to have all the men cooperating and in the game. You know, and the only way to do that is to have monogamy, because monogamy gives everybody a fair chance to mate. There's a girl for every boy and a boy for every girl.
Now, you write here, we started off this book in chapter 22. We started off this book by celebrating how monogamous culture had triumphed in the 1950s, how men had been domesticated to a degree probably never before achieved in history, and how there was exactly what you just said, quote, a girl for every boy and a boy for every girl. So tell me, men had been domesticated to a degree probably never been achieved in history?
I think so. I mean, I remember Margaret Mead in the 60s saying something about how American men had become so domesticated that they weren't that interesting to women anymore or something. You know, the women's sense of adventure was
Right. The bad boys had been conquered.
Yeah. But I mean, you look at somebody like Ozzie Nelson. You know, the Ozzie Nelson show. I mean, there was a man just completely devoted to his family. You know, there wasn't any suggestion of, you know, him running off somewhere, having a little something on the side. It was just he was a family man. He was totally involved with his wife and children. And people used to say, I remember reading things about him on the set, and they'd say, you know, it may seem like he's acting, but this is exactly the way he is in real life. You know.
Now, here's an interesting. I don't know if you cover this, or I missed it if you did, but in every other civilization, and I'm talking in the Western world, forget the non-Western, sure. But for example, in Europe and Latin America, mm-hmm. it is generally accepted that a man will have a mistress.
Yeah.
Now, so how does that play into the polygamy idea?
Well, I mean, the French are kind of notorious for, every one of their prime ministers seems to end up, involved in some kind of brouhaha.
Well, it's not a brouhaha in France. That's the point.
Yeah.
It's a brouhaha here.
Well, there's this double. There's always this ambiguity in France. As to, they admire their men who are able to keep a couple of women on the side, but also, it becomes a scandal when he's the prime minister or something. But the general rules in society have been monogamy. It's very difficult to maintain, but the general rule has been that men at the top play around more than anybody else. You know, because polygamy benefits high status men. Polygamy it favors high status men, and it's usually very difficult to keep that under control. And you know, different societies have different reactions to that. I mean, America in the 1950s was vigilantly monogamous. You know, we didn't allow Ingrid Bergman to come over here because she had a love child with her director or something. There was we policed the thing very.
All right, listen. Stay on with me. We have one more segment here. I want to ask you what you think is now happening. Is polygamy returning? Is monogamy failing? What's happening? The book, Marriage and Civilization, a brilliant thesis. You can't advance with polygamy. Wow. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. Hello, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Final 2 minutes of the hour, and unfortunately, final 2 minutes with William Tucker. Marriage and Civilization, How Monogamy Made Us Human. His thesis is powerful. And this is really an original. I love original minds. This is there. I mean, to see a pattern. I love people who see patterns. I try to see patterns, and that's why that polygamy stymies the development of civilization. Yeah. So what's happening if the 50s in the United States of America was the apex of monogamy and of domesticating the male? Yeah. What do you see happening now? Well,
monogamy creates two dissatisfied groups: high status men and low status women. And high status men are limited because they can't have multiple wives. Low status women are limited because they don't get access to high status men. And there's always going to be some dissatisfaction there. Most of the philandering in history goes on between high status men and lower status women. Now, I think usually societies will unravel from the top. Men will become very, there was the jus prima noctis when the lord of the land could take any woman he wanted. But I think we're unraveling from the bottom. And I think it's the dissatisfactions of lower status women that is driving this, because they are limited to a cohort of low status men who are, generally poorer providers or not as appealing. And what has happened, it happened with the blacks first. What has happened is the government has intervened and said, well, you no longer have to marry that guy. If he gets you pregnant, you've got an alternative, and that is the government, the welfare state. And African Americans, black people were just as strongly monogamous as whites. As a culture, they were very strongly monogamous right up and through the 1960s. And then this welfare thing came along, and all of a sudden you didn't have to get married anymore. And we've created this culture of single motherhood, which is totally unprecedented in history. No society has ever tried to, say women can just raise children by themselves, men can go off and find something else to do. And it's moving up the ladder now, as Charles Murray writes in his book Coming Apart. It's getting to be a white working class phenomenon now.
Well, it's a joy to talk to you and to read you. We're putting the book up, and I'm taking it home. That's the ultimate statement. I get a lot of books here. Marriage and Civilization, How Monogamy Made Us Human. William Tucker, you keep writing. I'll keep having you on.
Terrific. Thanks very much, Dennis. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.